It's time. We have returned. Maximum Alert is back, baby. The greatest news show on earth. We're back. We're back! Ah! Ah! It's time! You can't escape me. You thought it's over. You thought it's been weeks. He's out. He's done. You've never been more wrong. I'm stronger. I'm more powerful. More powerful. My wife is texting me saying, "Are you okay?" Because she can hear me screaming. Because of my power. We got a big show today. We got a big show today. We got weeks of news to catch up on. We got the Chinese government defaulting on its debts. We've got election results. We've got dumbass Italians trying to squeeze the U.S. economy for money via labor unions. Let's go! Let's go! Cut the music, boys. I said cut the music. Guys, welcome to Maximum Alert. Let me text my wife real quick. She thinks I'm in pain or something. Which is crazy because I just told her I was recording, so I don't know what she thinks. Guys, it's been a minute, and I will admit that. All right, I'll be the first to admit I'm a little late. Okay? But I know how valuable this is. I know how much you guys need this. You need Maximum Alert. You need a safe space. You can hear these texting notifications. I just told my wife I'm recording. I said, don't text me. And guess what she's doing? She's texting me. My wife is literally Amelia Bedelia. This is crazy. I'm not editing that out. It's in. Guys, I've been out. But I know you need this. I know you need the safe space. It's got to happen. You need me. You need a place where you can say, listen, I know that, listen, I love all people. I love all people. I'm not a hater. Okay. I want equity amongst groups. I want the world to be free and fair and open, but 6 million? 6 million? That seems a little high. Come on. And this is it, dude. You want a safe place to ask the right questions? Come to Maximum Alert, boy. Come to Maximum Alert. This is where you will find not only the freedom to express your innermost diabolical thoughts, according to the world standards, but also the freedom to laugh and feel brevity at the world today, because it's not as dark as they say it is. No matter where you turn, they want you to believe that the world is a dark, scary, ooh, it's scary. There's people everywhere. There's brown people and Jews and Chinese people, and they're going to come get you. And Joe Biden's going to come get you. We're going to get you, boy. We're going to take your farmland, and you're not going to be able to return to tradition. But that's not the case. That's not the case. We are going to return to tradition. The Lord's power will win out. He is in control. And today we are going to talk about that power and control. Talk about the turning tides of the economic future. We are going to talk about the destruction of the liberal world order and the new flourishing, blossoming fascist, no, I'm kidding, not fascist, but the return of the republic. The republic is coming. Guys, so I didn't do my normal preparation. So I'm going to go a little off the cuff today, because I was more concerned with just getting something out. And I have a little bit of time. I have a Friday off. My company is closed today, so I'm going to take that time to get a Maximum Alert out, and I'm going to try to return to our regular scheduled sort of uploads. Now that my job is starting to settle down a little bit, that should be easier. Although I will be out of town all week next week for work because I'm a big highfalutin man now. Okay, I get flown out. All right, I get flown out. I get steak dinners. I get wine. I get people asking me if I need cups of water. People say yes sir to me now. All right, I'm big dog now. Okay, so throw some respect on me. All right, if I'm a couple episodes short, you got to understand my job's more important than yours. Okay, so I'm out because people are relying on me personally to make sure the world keeps turning. All right, so chill out. Okay, don't go in the comments saying, "Where's the episode? Where are my episodes?" Okay, now no one's ever made any comment ever other than Tannen, maybe. So not enough people listening to this for that to matter. Anyways, back on track. We're going to talk about China today. The Chinese government the Chinese economy is about to completely implode on itself, I think. I could be wrong about that. Obviously, I don't think I am, but, and I'll break that down for you today. I came across while doing some research, all right, some financial research about the real estate market, trying to decide whether or not I'm going to buy a house in the next 2 years or build a house in the next 2 years. I came across a very interesting little theory that I'd like to cover with you guys. It's not necessarily news, although it does tie into the whole China thing, and so it is news. And then I know this is old hat at this point, but I do want to talk about the Longshoreman Union debacle. I haven't seen everybody mention this one thing that I want to mention, so we'll talk about that, and then we'll cover election results, and we'll wrap the whole thing up with the Great Game. The Great Game, our newest segment. So, guys, let's dive into it. Let's dive into it with the China thing, okay? So, basically there's two ways I can explain this. There's a very complex way that I don't even fully understand, and so that will be cumbersome, and I'll probably stumble a lot. And then there's an oversimplified, sort of easy way to explain this that may, to someone who knows what they're talking about, will probably sound like it just sound oversimplified. So I'm going to go with the oversimplified route, I think, because this is it's an important topic, and so people, we'll explain it to the level of which people can understand generally, and if they're interested in it, they can reach out. They can reach out to me at workhard@hyperpremium.co. You can email Jason, my co-host for Work Hard, there as well. You can email me the questions there, leave comments, or you can just look it up yourself. So we'll dive into the China thing. So this is a report from the Kobisi letter, which is one of my favorite financial resources. Their newsletter is expensive. I think it's like $130 a month. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend you go out and, pick that up, but unless you really care about this kind of stuff. But you can follow them on Twitter. I don't know where else they are, but they do post a lot of really good stuff on Twitter. And this is actually a Twitter post that I'm going to reference here. So they've got some good Twitter stuff if you want to go follow them there. So this is a Twitter thread from September 26th. Now that's a long time ago. All right. That's 2 weeks ago. That's not good that I'm reading something from 2 weeks ago. That's a sign that I haven't been keeping up with Maximum Alert. But anyways, this is September 26th. So I'll just read you the post. China is panicking. In fact, China is showing 2008-like signs that they are on the brink of a severe recession. Over the last 2 days, China has begun pandemic-level stimulus as seen during the lockdowns in 2020. So the question here is why? What's happening? And we've talked about this before. All the millionaires are leaving China. What's going on? Why is the Chinese government all of a sudden in a state of panic? And the answer to that is money printing. So there's two things have occurred that have gotten China into a bad place. They have devalued their currency tremendously. So they've printed, I think we've talked about this, China's printed 10 times more money than the US has printed. So all of the problems that we feel here with inflation and a stagnating economy, everything's kind of grinding to a halt. They are feeling that they're 10 times worse. And I was going to pull some data on Chinese quality of life, but I felt like that was just, going too much into the weeds. So just, you can look it up, but the Chinese standard of living is very low. It's getting lower. People are extremely poor. Even their middle class is gone. They don't have a middle class anymore. You're either very poor or very rich. And if you're very rich, you are leaving the country. So you're taking all your money with you. And China is left with poor people who don't know very much. They're not skilled labor. They're in a bad way. So the Chinese government has printed a ton of money, and it's part of the reason why you see this. If you go on social media, you'll see these posts. Look, China has, they built a railway station in 11 hours. Could we do that in America? Well, there's two things. One, they printed $1 billion to build that. And two, it's made out of styrofoam. Okay. It's made out of styrofoam, and it will collapse, and it will kill 1,000 people. And that you won't see. The particular video I'm thinking about, that train station probably already has collapsed and probably did kill 1,000 people, but you'll never hear about that because China has their own internet. So you will not see that information ever come out. You'll only ever see the things that their government allows you to see, which is, them building gigantic styrofoam structures with neon lights on them. And everybody knows that flashy things, if it's flashy, it's got to be expensive. If it's got bright lights on it, it must be high quality, right? So the Chinese government has printed a ton of money. They printed a ton of money, and that's very bad. And we've covered why that's bad a million times, both on Work Hard. This is a standard hyper premium talking point in general. Something we talk about on Maximum Alert specifically all the time. Printing money is bad. Okay. Now the Chinese government at this point is in a state of deflation. Now deflation is also not good, right? You think, deflation, that means prices are going down, right? Well, whereas inflation is bad for everyday people who operate with cash, who don't generally buy assets, who don't generally have stocks. They don't have any kind of security. Maybe they own a home, whatever. They don't have anything of value to bet against the cash that they hold. Inflation is bad, right? The price of groceries goes up. People can't factor that kind of stuff in. Price of gas, all that stuff. The inflation narrative, right? Now that's bad for regular people, but it's good for upper middle class and upper class people and higher who have lots of assets. They own stocks, they own maybe multiple investment properties, they own all kinds of stuff, right? They own stuff that isn't cash that helps them protect against deflation. It preserves their wealth, right? Now, deflation is bad for those people because deflation. Why would you buy anything? Why would you buy anything at all why would you buy something today if you know that tomorrow prices are going down, right? So you're just going to wait. You're going to wait until they stop going down before you buy something. And that's basic arithmetic, right? If you know that something's going to be on sale tomorrow at your favorite store, why would you buy it today? And so what happens is nobody buys anything. People stop buying stuff. And what happens when people stop buying stuff? Businesses stop making money. And when businesses stop making money, they cannot afford to pay people. They cannot afford to pay their regular workers, just your regular humdrum Joe Schmo who works as a plumber. If he works at a large organization, they're not going to be able to afford to sell their plumbing services because everybody knows that if I just wait 2 weeks, I can get it for cheaper. So why would I do that? So deflation free, that's kind of a bad example because, plumbing can be kind of an emergency, but you get what I'm trying to say. So deflation can lock up the economy just as quickly as inflation, and it can cause people to not get paid just as quickly as inflation. So China is in a state of deflation. They're in their longest episode of deflation. It's their longest period of deflation since the 1990s. Okay, and that's important. Keep the 1990s in your mind. We're gonna wrap that up later. So their longest point of deflation since the 1990s. The unemployment in China has reached decade highs. Okay, the unemployment rate pre-COVID was below 4%. During COVID, it jumped to 5%, and then it pulled back a little bit back down to 4.8 after the lockdowns. But it's jumped back. Okay. Now there's no excuse for this. In 2019, when there was a huge spike in unemployment in China, the COVID happened. Obviously, that was the entire economy locked up. That's everybody. Nobody could go anywhere. No one could buy anything. So people lost their jobs. Right. We would expect to see that. But we're supposed to be in this roaring bounce back economy across the entire planet. That's what they're telling us. And that's especially what China's telling us about their economy, that they're this roaring, powerful economy that's coming back hard. And we're bouncing back from the COVID lockdowns. But now, as it stands today, their unemployment rate is higher than it was at peak COVID times. What's going on there? Well, they're in a state of deflation. Companies cannot afford to retain their employees because they're not selling anything, so they're firing people. So the Chinese unemployment is not good, and it's another sign that they are on the brink of they're on the brink. They're just on the brink. So there's a couple more stats here. They're lowering mortgage rates. They're injecting $142 billion into the banks. So they're just giving banks $142 billion. And they're implementing forced rate cuts. So they're price controlling, they're price controlling loan interest rates. And all of this stuff has caused a massive surge in spending and in investment in the Chinese economy. And you might think that that's good, right? Oh, the S&P 500 has hit historic highs. Everything's going higher. The Chinese economy is great. It looks great. It's going higher, right? But that's exactly what happened to us in 2008. The Fed saw what was coming. They knew what was going on. And in order to try to buy their way out of it, they injected massive stimulus into the economy. And the only thing that it did do is just make the financial crisis in 2008 worse. It did not stop the inevitable, which was that the market searches for equilibrium. It's like water. It looks for equilibrium, and you cannot stop that. You cannot stop that. You can delay it. You can delay it for a time, but you cannot stop it. You have to view technological progress and markets they are forces of nature. They are not these they're not human institutions. Okay? Human beings do not have control over whether or not nukes get invented. Human beings do not have control over whether or not automation occurs. Human beings do not have control over whether or not a market goes up or a market goes down. They do not have control over that. We can influence those things slightly, but the best we can ever hope to do, if we're retarded, is delay the onset of something we deem bad. But often it's not bad. There'll be some sort of, market correction in the future to bring back things to a way that we may prefer them. But we're just ultimately riding these waves. That's all we're doing, is riding these waves. And we are not in control of these forces at all. So in order to understand, it's a big part of my reason why I get so bent out of shape when people start saying things like, automation is bad or whatever, or we need to denuclearize, stuff like that. It's just not, you can't actually have it play out in the real world the way you want it to play out. You're not in control. You're not in charge of those things. So China is printing all this money trying to save itself. and it's not going to work. They're going to delay the inevitable, and they're going to make it much worse. So at this point, I kind of want to put a pin in the China thing. We're going to come back to it. So hold those things in your mind. Hold that 1990s date in your mind. But I want to cover something else here. And this is this interesting argument that I came across when I was doing some investigation into the macroeconomic environment and the microeconomic environment in the South, in the American South, as far as real estate goes. Came across this. So this is a tweet by Finance Lancelot at Finance Lancelot on Twitter. And this is pretty interesting. I have not heard this angle taken before, but I'll read you the tweet. So this is, the U.S. isn't going to default on its debt. They're going to force everyone else to default on theirs by raising rates and creating a dollar shortage. When everyone is forced to sell, the U.S. Treasuries everyone is forced to sell their U.S. Treasuries in order to get more dollars, U.S. dollars, to service their own debt. The U.S. will be able to come behind and buy all those U.S. Treasuries below face value. So basically, a U.S. Treasury is an IOU issued by the government, right? And so that's how the government actually makes money. Basically, that's like the fundamental. There's a thing called the Mandrake mechanism, which I talked about before, and maybe one day I'll explain it. But you can just look it up. There's people way smarter than me that explain it in a way more simple, bite-sized, easy to metabolize way than I can. But the fundamental movement of the Mandrake mechanism is the selling of U.S. Treasuries. And so it's an IOU issued by the government that says, we will pay out this much money over 10 years, or you give us $10,000, whatever the treasury, you buy the treasury for. And then we'll pay an interest rate on that. And then when the treasury term ends, when the loan term ends, we'll have completely repaid the loan at that time. So that's how the U.S. actually makes money. It's not through taxes. The U.S. sells these treasuries. And the idea that the treasuries have so much value because everyone considers the U.S.'s ability to pay its debts impeccable, unviolatable, because the U.S. can can print all this money. It can go collect all this taxes from the most productive workforce in the world. It's got the largest Navy. There's just no way that the U.S. is going to default on these debts. So everybody treats these things like gold. And the problem with that is that we have issued so much of this debt that we actually are in threat of having to print too much money just to service the debt, just not even to pay it off, just to pay the interest rates on it. And once we start printing that much money to pay off our interest rates every year, the U.S. dollar will be devalued so much that people won't even want. It doesn't matter how much the U.S. can collect taxes or print more money or whatever. People don't want dollars; they're worthless. Like in Venezuela, they printed so many dollars that people were just wiping their ass with these things as opposed to buying toilet paper. And you just find Venezuelan pesos or whatever it is in the gutter, like they were just worthless, right? So that's what's that's the idea. That's like the risk here. We've talked about that. I've explained that. This guy is making a pretty compelling argument, which is that that's not going to happen because the U.S. is actually going to raise rates so high that it's going to choke the market out of dollars, the entire global market out of dollars. Dollars will, when you raise rates, loans become more scarce and harder to get because they're more expensive. And when that happens, it's harder to go get dollars. Now, all of the debt that we're talking about here is denominated in dollars, which means you have to pay that debt in dollars. So when these countries start to become cash poor because they can't go get loans because loans are more expensive, they will have to sell assets in order to go get dollars so that they can pay their own debts. Right? Now, when they sell those assets, especially when they're under pressure, think about selling a car. If you really need the money, you're going to sell. If you're motivated to sell that car, then you're going to sell that car at a cheaper rate, right? And the idea here is that eventually the U.S. will be able to choke other countries so much that they will that they will have to sell their American treasuries at lower than the face value of those treasuries. So the US will be able to turn around and buy those treasuries back for cheaper, meaning effectively the US will be able to pay off its debts. Because if it buys a treasury back, then that means that it owes the debt to itself, right? So, I mean, what does that mean? It means you paid your debt off, right? You can't owe money to yourself. So the idea here, basically, to repeat myself, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. The idea here is that the U.S. is going to choke. It's going to choke the market so that everyone has to liquidate U.S. treasuries. They can then buy those treasuries for pennies on the dollar and by printing money, and then pay their debt off. Right now, there's some argument here. You have to print money in order to do that. So the more you print money, you might, depending on how much people are selling the debt for, if you are printing too much money to buy that, then you might be devaluating the currency such that you actually aren't getting a discount on your debt. You aren't paying anything off, and you are creating the exact financial crisis that you were trying to avoid. And that is something that I think certainly may happen. This is just a gamble, right? If this is really what they're planning on doing, which there's an interview with Alan Greenspan that I should have pulled up, but I didn't, where he kind of goes, where Alan Greenspan used to run the Fed. If they are planning on doing this, it is a bet. It is not a sure thing. It is a gamble. That is their only way out, is their narrow path through to victory, through survival. It might work. It might not. We don't know. But it's relevant to the Chinese thing because in the 1990s, the U.S. did this to all of Asia. The U.S. choked the Asian economy out of dollars, and the Asians had a massive financial crisis. And it started with the selling of U.S. debt. It started with the selling of U.S. treasuries. Now, China has, 2 years ago, China started dumping their treasuries to raise capital. China was holding treasuries, almost $1 trillion in treasuries. I'm sorry. China had a lot more, had trillions of dollars in U.S. treasuries. Now they don't even have $1 trillion. They're selling them very rapidly because they need to raise capital. So who are they selling these treasuries to? They're selling them back to us for pennies on the dollar. Now that is what is happening in China. China is getting choked out by the American federal banking system and the American government. So China's, again, I mean, I've said this over and over again. We have every indication here that China is not this blossoming new economy that's going to take over the world and be the next West, and but they're communists, so we're gonna have a totalitarian, evil government running the world instead of this, bright liberal democracy like the U.S. What it's all bad, whatever. That's not. I don't think that that's going to happen. China is on the brink of economic collapse. It is on the brink of economic collapse. Now, I'm only 30, right? I'm 29. I haven't been in the economy, or I haven't been operating in markets for long enough to have a clear understanding fully of what's going on. I very well may be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe China is going to totally surprise all of us and pull the rabbit out of the hat and somehow manage to become the next Rome or whatever. I don't think that's going to happen. Every indicator, everything I see indicates that China's done. China is done. All they are doing, they are a zombie. They are a man who does not realize it's dead. So the Chinese government is again, they're just cooked. They're cooked, and there's nothing that they can do. There's nothing that they can do. They can only watch as their economy slowly collapses. So that is the China issue. That is the China issue. We've covered that today. Boom! Story number 1 out the pipe. Let's go, baby. The next thing I want to talk about is the longshoreman issue. All right. So this is, hold on. Let me take my hoodie off here. It's getting warm in me office. I got to pop the top. All right, here we go. I'm now shirtless. The longshoreman thing. Okay. We'll talk about this maybe quickly, maybe not. So everybody kind of has the story of the longshoreman down at this point. And I think for the most part, the zeitgeist seems to be kind of against these guys already, which is good. They should be. But I do want to break down some numbers for you guys. So the American Longshoremen Union, the International Longshoremen Association, which is the name of the union, is a monopoly. Okay, they have a monopoly on labor for dock workers. All right, now when a corporation has a monopoly on something, people often get quite upset, and they want to be trust busters to come in and break them up. They're talking about doing it to Google right now. That it's the big companies they're not allowed to make any money. They can't have margins that are that big. First of all, the margins aren't that big ever anywhere. That's just not how it works. But no one ever seems to care about an organization having a monopoly on labor. Now, what's the problem with that? We saw the problem. The American Longshoremen's Association, the International Longshoremen's Association, has a clear monopoly on dock labor. So what can they do? They can bring the whole economy to a halt because they can all refuse to work. They can all refuse to bring goods in. When they have that ability, when they are that organized, they can do things like demand a 77% raise for all longshoremen, for all dock employees. And you might think, oh, this is, you know what? I'll just play this. You can hear it from the mouth of babes. Here is Harold Daggett, the chief negotiator for the International Longshoremen Association. He runs the thing. He's also in the mob, by the way. And you can just tell by, I don't even need to prove it to you. You can just listen to him talk and you'll know.
These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the streets, from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's going to happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world.
Right. So he's saying, I'm going to put a gun to your head. I'm going to force you to do what I want. And what do they want? They want they wanted a 77% increase on pay. Now let's look at their current pay. Full-time registered longshore workers earn an average of $197,000 a year in 2022, not including benefits. Clerks, office workers, earned $220,000 a year, and foremen and walking bosses earn an average of $306,000 a year. $306,000 a year. Now, that's not to include all the benefits. They have these things called labor. I think they're called labor royalties or box loyalties, something like that, where if a worker loses his job to automation, these port authorities have to continue to pay him even though he's not working there anymore. Okay, so the Longshoremen Association has been choking our economy for years by price gouging labor. They are price gouging labor. That's what they are doing. I'm sorry. It's not a complicated job. It's not worth $300,000 a year. Okay? People who make $300,000 a year have to work 80 hours a week. These guys work 38 on average. Okay? This is not, it's not that complicated of a job. And one of the main problems, one of the real big reasons these labor unions are getting all bent out of shape is because their jobs are getting automated away at the ports. If a robot can do your job, it's not that hard. I'm sorry. Robots are not that advanced right now. They can't articulate their fingers like humans can. They can't, it's just not, they can't think. If your job can be done by a robot, it's not hard. And guess what? If you are, again, your margin is my opportunity. Your margin is my opportunity. If you are price gouging anything, what you are doing is creating an opportunity for someone else to come in and do it cheaper. So if you are a labor worker who is participating in price gouging because of your labor union, someone is going to come in and automate your job away for cheaper. If it costs $300,000 to have you walk around and make sure everything's operating according to plan, and they can just operate your job away with software that governs robots to make sure all the robots are where they need to be on time, and that software costs, I don't know, maybe $100,000 a year, maybe, you're gone. And that's the entire port, by the way. The $100,000 a year. It probably takes 5 or 6 of these foremans and walking bosses to run a port. So, I mean, what are we even talking about here? We're talking about 1/10 of the price. You're just not worth it. I'm sorry. You're just not worth it. Now, on top of that, later in this interview, this guy, this little wormy mob boss guy talks about how these companies are making trillions of dollars a year, especially since COVID. And I want a piece of that for my men. That's what I want is a piece for my men. First of all, that guy makes $1 million a year. So when he gets that 77% pay increase, that's going to be pretty fat. He's going to enjoy that. He drives a Bentley and has one of the most disgusting McMansions you've ever seen. It's huge. He wants to get a piece of all this new money that's coming in for his men. Let's talk about all that new money. All right. Let me explain something to you guys. This is something that is absurd to me that people do not understand. When you see that Apple makes $1 trillion a year, whatever Apple makes, I haven't looked it up. It makes an absurd amount of money every year, right? Everybody goes, this is unfair. They're making too much money. They're greedy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You don't understand that Apple's operating costs give them a 10% margin on that. Apple's operating costs give them a 5, 6, maybe 10% margin on whatever they're doing, maybe. And the margin means how much money they're actually making. How much money are they actually making? When it's all said and done, when all the bills are paid, when you pay all your workers, you pay the power bill, you pay for all the equipment that you need, how much money are you actually making? That's your margin. So they actually aren't making that much money. Amazon is a fantastic example of this. Your margin is my opportunity is a Jeff Bezos quote. Amazon as a business model runs tons of different businesses at razor thin margins, and those margins all add up and it makes a big profit, right? But it runs those things at razor thin margins. It's why Amazon is such a good company, because they spend so much money making sure their services are really beneficial to everyone. So this creates this idea in people's heads that I'm an Amazon, I'm a toothless, gub-brained Amazon factory worker, and I only make $20 an hour or $40, whatever it is that I make an hour, $7 an hour. Who cares? But Amazon's making $1 trillion a year. Where's my cut of that? First of all, your cut is the $20 an hour. Your job isn't hard. It's just not worth that much. You're not worth that much. Sorry. That's the reality of the situation. You're just not worth that much. Get over it. Become more valuable. Figure out how to do something other than taping boxes closed. Dingus. But also, Amazon doesn't make any money. They can't afford to pay you anymore. And the same thing is going on here with these labor unions in the longshoremen. So the port authorities all together from Houston to Maine, as this guy says, they make $5 trillion a year total. Now, what do you think they spend on just paying the dock workers as it stands. Just paying the dock workers. How much money do you think that they spend on that? They spend $3 trillion every year just paying these lazy dinguses who don't do any work, who get paid a ton of money. They get the $3 trillion. More than half their operating budget goes to paying these guys. Okay? It goes to paying these guys. And that's not, you don't even factor in, it's a port. Have you been to a deep water port? If you've never been to a deep water port, I encourage you to drive down to Houston, drive to wherever, if we've got some listeners in Belgium. I don't know where the closest deep water port is for you. Drive to one. Drive to New York, drive to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. There's some in Florida, whatever. Go to one of these. They are massive. They are massive. The power bill alone to run one of these things must be astronomical. Not to mention the maintenance on the heavy machinery. Not to mention the heavy machinery themselves. These port authorities make almost no money. I've looked at their financials. That's how I know this. Many of them are publicly traded or owned by the government. So they have to post their financials. You can go online and look it up. The financial statements are not hard to understand. It's very easy. It's it's investment 101. It takes 10 seconds. Go look up a Martin Shkreli video. He explains it in literally 2 or 3 minutes. Martin Shkreli will explain to you how to look at a financial statement. This information is easily accessible. It is not hard. You do not have an excuse to be this stupid. You do not have an excuse. You just don't know what you're talking about. I'm not saying you, the listeners. You guys are obviously incredibly intelligent. Everybody listens to this is very intelligent. But these people who are on the side of these labor unions, you do not understand what you're talking about. These people are price gouging. They have a monopoly on labor. That is wrong. And they are going to lose the battle. They might, in the short term, get a couple $1 million more for everybody, whatever. But in the long run, they are going to be replaced by robots. They are pricing themselves out of the market. They are making it cheaper to just go get robots or foreigners. And guys, when the robots replace the longshoremen, it is not that the port authorities are going to increase their margin by $3 trillion and they're just going to keep that there. No, it's that the price of importing goods is going to decrease dramatically because those port authorities compete with each other. And if it's cheaper to just bring stuff into Houston and ship it to New York on the ground or in planes than it is to bring it to a deep water port in New York, then they're not going to do that. Nobody's going to do that. People are not going to import through New York. Right? So it's a commoditized thing, shipping logistics. It'll be a race to the bottom. And so these companies will save $3 trillion and through competitive markets, those savings will be passed on to us. Everything gets cheaper. Everything imported gets cheaper. Okay? This is just, it's just astounding to me that this is still, this needs to be talked about. 200 years into a capitalist economy, or what used to be a capitalist economy, we still have to explain why you get to take a shit on a toilet that flushes your excrement. It whisks it away from you to a place 20 miles down the road where you never have to deal with it. Why every time you flip your white light switch, it just comes on. The lights come on. You can just expect that to happen. Why you get incredibly cheap internet. Things here are better than they are everywhere else because for the most part, we still do have a relatively free market. Now that's, you factor in the Fed, all that stuff that can get a little dicey. Okay. Now this kind of actually bleeds into something else I want to talk about before we go on to the election results. So this is something I came across, alarming. So here's the headline. Alarming. There used to be 6.8 million farms in the U.S. in 1935 with a population around 127 million people. Today, with 330 million people living in this country, there are only 1.9 million farms left to serve them. This is alarming. It's scary. How are we going to supply everyone with all this food? What are we going to do? It's not alarming. All right. You gotta. This stuff is just crazy. you guys think about this in the wrong direction. It is not that farms have become so untenable and so few people know how to farm that we're not going to be able to supply food for ourselves anymore. It's that farming has gotten so efficient. We have gotten so good at farming that we could support double the population on 1/6 of the farms. That's how efficient farming has become. It is not a sign of instability. It is a sign of resilience. There's this whole idea out here that, and I interact with it on a daily basis. I have friends who think that introducing complexity into markets makes them unsustainable or makes them, makes them unstable. Okay, but that's not the case. Complexity, specialization increases stability. If one part of the economy falls, the other parts are so complex and so robust and so insulated and so isolated from each other that one can collapse and the rest of it can just keep going. Complexity in markets, efficiency in systems, these are not signs of instability. They are signs of greater stability. They are signs of everything working. It is the opposite of what you think it is. It is not bad to have only 1.8 billion farms or million farms operating in the U.S. It is not bad. It is a sign that the U.S. has gotten so good at growing food, we don't have to have that many farms anymore. It's not alarming. Okay? We'll take a quick break. Hold on. All right, we're back. Thank you for your patience. I'll just edit that out. Okay, guys, so we're going to cover election results real quick. I guess not election results, but election status, whatever, where the election is at. Let me pull up Polymarkets here. So Polymarkets, we talked about this. The prediction market is a pretty reliable thing. People are putting their money where their mouth is. It's more valuable than polls because it's what people actually think the election is going. So it's getting bad, all right? It's getting bad for old Kamabla, okay? The election results as of, let me see when this was. This was, right, around October 3rd. Kamala and Trump were neck and neck. Now, I have tried to figure out for the life of me what happened on the 3rd. Or I guess this was actually on the 5th and 6th really is when this started to set in. What happened on the 5th and 6th that caused this jump? I cannot for the life of me figure it out. What does the market know? What does the market know that I do not? Maybe you guys know, but I don't. I couldn't find anything anywhere. But on the 5th and 6th, a pretty substantial gap started to form on the betting markets between Trump and Kamala in Trump's favor. Trump jumped to his highest lead that he's had since Kamala got nominated on the 6th, and it has only gone up. Trump is now leading Kamala by 10 points, 10.5 points. So the betting markets have Trump at a 55% chance of winning the election. They have Kamala at 45.5%. That's pretty substantial. Okay. That is, that's quite the gap. And again, I don't really understand what flipped here, but I do think people are starting to see in general, the Kamala is not she's not, I mean, she's running for president, but it's not like there's a living, breathing human being that's running for president in Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is more of a puppet than Joe Biden, even, I feel like. I mean, she just straight up is a hollow person. She'll just do whatever. I'll just do whatever. Yeah, just tell me when to go, what to say, whatever. Oh, you want me to start a war? Yeah, I'll start a war. Okay, like Kamala Harris will not, if she gets elected, she will not make a single decision. She is straight up a figurehead. She'll be the Queen of England. It's really shocking. I think the Queen of England actually had the king of whatever, the monarchy in England, I think actually has some sort of State Department style responsibility or something. I don't know. But yeah, this is it's getting dark. And apparently the rumors I'm hearing are that the Kamala Harris campaign's internal polling are bad. Like like historically awful. Like it's really going to not go well. So I think Trump's going to get elected, guys. I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to pull it off, which is great. I don't know if he's going to get elected. I don't know if he'll be able to actually save the economy from total collapse. I don't know that he should, but, yeah, I mean, he's of the two of them, he's the one that at least has like human motivations. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure he's running to stay out of jail, but he also seems very sincerely to want people to, live normal lives and be able to thrive independently from the government. So I don't know. I mean, I think if he wins, I think it'll be good. I don't know that it'll be great. I don't know that it'll be the best thing to ever happen, but, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe he is playing some sort of 3D chess, whatever. Like, maybe Q's right. Maybe he is running an underground private CIA and gonna topple the entire, pedophile organization. Who knows? Who knows? And we may find out. We may not. Trump may get assassinated or whatever. Or they may steal the election again. Who knows? But hopefully he gets elected and hopefully get to see what he pulls off this time. So there you go. We covered the election. Guys, it is now time for my favorite segment. And I know y'all's favorite segment too. It is time for the game, the great game, the Fed game. Here we go.
It's time to play the game. Time to play the game.
Here we go. The game. The Fed game. They are printing money. The money printer has started back up. The Fed rate dropped 50 basis points in September. Now, the idea here is that they're going to stimulate the economy. They're going to reverse the trend of growing unemployment. And they're going to be able to do that because inflation has stopped. And we can all live in a utopia where you just get to spend as much money as you want because money is easy. It's a Keynesian economy, so spending is the only thing that matters. And, whatever. Housing prices keep going up and the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting, they wouldn't say the poor keep getting poorer, but that's what happens. So that does not appear to be what's happening. This is, actually, you know what? Hold on. Let me take a quick break again. I need to check something. I'll be right back. All right, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. So here's the deal. The Fed tries to manage two stats in the economy. That's the thing that they try to do is manage inflation and unemployment. Inflation is handled by increasing rates, right? So when they raise rates, inflation is supposed to go down because less money is being printed because less of it's being loaned. Unemployment is solved by lowering rates because more money starts flowing more freely. And when money starts flowing more freely, companies can go get loans. When they go get those loans, they can use that to grow their company, which means hiring more people. And so that's what that's kind of the Fed's idea here is that they're trying to manage inflation and unemployment. And that's the great game. That's the wire they're walking, right? How can we basically the idea is how can we keep the economy running without, we don't want it to grow too fast, but we don't want it to decelerate too quickly, right? We don't want people to lose jobs too quickly, but we don't want people to be dealing with, incredibly expensive gas, stuff like that. Okay. That's what they claim to be doing. What are they really doing? What they're really doing is becoming the lender of last resort. They are buying everything. They are trying to recreate feudalism in a weird sort of like new way. They're failing. They're failing at both of those things. Okay. So they're failing at their stated goal and they're failing at their secret goal. Well, they're both stated. You can, they're both stated. The guys that created the Fed, you can go read the Creature at Jekyll Island. The guys that created the Fed, very, very open about their motivations. But let's talk about this. We'll wrap this up quick because I know we got 5 more minutes here. I don't want to make you guys feel like we're going to have to slog through a bunch of boring stuff here. Core CPI inflation is up today, or is up yesterday at 3.3%. It's the first increase since March. Now that we would expect with a Fed rate cut, right? Inflation's going to go up. But here's the problem. The inflation rate goes up. The Fed is supposed to be okay with that as long as unemployment is decreasing, right? It's not decreasing. Unemployment is not decreasing. First of all, the Fed is trying to keep, it has stated the Fed is trying to keep the inflation rate at 2%. And the reason they chose 2%, that's not an arbitrary number. Everybody thinks it's arbitrary. It's not arbitrary. It's because that's the historic rate at which human beings increase the sum total of gold throughout all of human history. Okay. That's why they think it's a healthy number, because the inflation rate naturally of the reserve currency of the planet up until the Fed was created was 2%. So they're going to keep that inflation rate. If they can keep it at 2%, then what does it matter whether or not we're on a gold standard? It's the same thing. Now, so the Fed, their goal is to keep it at 2%. Now it's not, it's at 3.3%. Okay. So they're lowering rates. Inflation is going to go back up, right? The idea, their belief here, or their stated belief, was that they were going to reduce rates and it wasn't going to increase inflation that much. They had it under control at 2.7, 2 whatever. Now that is clearly not the case. We are back at 3.3. So inflation is going up. The jobs report came in for September. 258,000 people filed for unemployment. That is above expectations. The expectation was 230,000. All right. Now the September jobs report is going to be sharply revised, as all job reports are in the past 4 years. They're going to be sharply revised to even lower. Okay. The numbers are going to be even worse. So the Fed has its nightmare scenario here, the thing that it cannot affect: rising inflation and rising unemployment. It does not have any tools to stop both of those things simultaneously, because the Fed's major thing that they do is buy government debt and issue rate cuts or rate increases. Okay. Neither of those things can affect unemployment and rising inflation in a positive way at the same time. It is their nightmare scenario. The Fed they're on the tightrope, and the tightrope's starting to wobble back and forth, and they're barely holding on at this point. They're not barely holding on, but it's not looking good. Okay. Dang, I had one last point here. What was the last point? I don't remember. Well, okay. I don't remember what the last point was. Let me try to remember. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I remember. So here's the other thing. The economy right now, the unemployment rate, all of this stuff, it's all, and we've covered this in the past. It's all synthetic. Okay. It is all government spending that's keeping the economy moving right now. Okay. All the new jobs are government jobs. They're either part-time jobs given to foreign laborers, illegal immigrants, or they are government jobs. If you look at job growth, if you actually break open the report and look at the numbers, all of the new jobs are government jobs. They're jobs that have been created by the government spending money frivolously. It is a massive amount of spending that's being done to make the economy look like everything's gangbusters. Okay. Now we understand that it's not, right? On the ground, we have to operate with the gas prices, with the grocery prices. We all know things are getting tighter. Things are getting worse. Now, what does that mean? Let's wrap this up. I don't want you guys to feel like, oh, there's a big economic crash coming. What am I going to do? Whatever. That's not what Maximum Alert is about. I know the name is tongue in cheek. The label or the logo's tongue in cheek. It's satirical. It's sarcastic. It's supposed to be, this sort of thing. It's like, look, everybody always thinks that there's a nuke going off. It's crazy. If the economy collapses, if it collapses in a real way, and the Fed loses credibility, that is good. Okay. It is going to be uncomfortable for 8 months. I would say, buy a big bag of salt and beans and rice, maybe freeze some chicken or whatever, some ground beef, just to make sure you're not too uncomfortable during that time period. Try the best that you can we've talked about this before, try the best that you can to get as much of a cash pile in your reserves as you can to make a cushion for yourself, just in case you do lose your job. And that's a possibility. You might lose your job. But it will probably be like that 8 to like 16 month period that's going to be really uncomfortable. But when that correction ends, Hopefully, there won't be a Fed. The federal government will be drastically different than it was before. And all of our enemies, as it were, are going to be in much worse situations than we are in. I think that the war in Ukraine is being fought right now because the American government wants to weaken the Russians to keep them from being able to fight a war. I think the American government knows that China's done. I think they're just worried about the Russians. And once the Russians can't fight a war, there's really not anybody else we have to worry about. So hitting a massive global depression will be much worse for other countries than it will be for us. Now that sucks for other countries. I'm sorry to my Belgian listeners. You guys are, I don't know anything about Europe. I don't know anything about your economies. I have no idea what you can do. I mean, I guess just try to get to America. I don't know, man. But I think in the U.S. it's going to be uncomfortable. At some point in the next couple years, the fourth turning, the economic crisis that began in 2008 and has followed us all the way here to 2024, I think in the next couple years, it's going to come to a climactic end, but it is going to come to an end. Now, again, I want to make that very clear. A climactic end, but an end, right? It's like the final scene in Lord of the Rings. You know, the battle seems desperate. The battle seems scary. The final battle is not good. And, you know, everybody's full of dread, but they get to the other end of it. And what do they get? They get the fourth age. They get a golden era for humanity. Everything's great. And so we'll have a 20-year period of awesome economic increase. You know, who knows what the world will look like when we get on the other side of this thing. But I do think this thing is coming. I do think you need to prepare for it, but I don't think you need to be worried about it. Okay. Especially if you're young. If you're in your 20s, there is no better time to have an economic crisis hit than when you're in your 20s. Because if you have kids, obviously things get a little bit more complicated because you do need to worry about getting food on the table and keeping the AC on and making sure they're okay and healthy. So again, I'm not saying this is perfect, but career-wise at least, money-making wise at least, if you're in your 20s getting hit with a massive economic depression, it's not going to be that big for your career, right? You're just in an entry-level job. When this all settles down and it's time to get back to work, you'll be able to just go snag up one of those entry-level jobs. Maybe you'll be a year or two behind, but it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things anyways, because over the next 20 years, no matter what you do, as long as you're diligent, your income's going to double because you're going to get more skills and all that stuff, you know, fundamental micro life economics. So if you're young, which I assume you're young, most of you are young that are listening to this. If you're young, you're going to be okay. Now, if you're in your 40s and you have an unstable job already, and it's pretty much a guarantee you're going to lose your job if there's some kind of major recession, yeah, I would be a little nervous. All right. It's going to be really hard to bounce back from that. And you're probably going to end up when things go back to normal and you can get a job again, you're probably going to end up set back a decade, and it's going to suck. Okay. That's true. It is going to suck, but the world is always going to be oriented towards young people because young people possess the most potential. And so everyone's always going to want to invest. Reality wants to invest in potential and things that can have the potential to grow and make returns. So reality is just always going to be aimed at young people. It's part of the reason why I'm optimistic, because I'm relatively young. You know, I'm about to age out of being able to claim like I'm a young person, but, and I have everybody has to have what I sell. So, I'm in I'm in a pretty secure position, which is part of the reason why I'm optimistic, but I'm also optimistic because I know that it's possible to prepare yourself for what's coming. And I know that it will be short-lived and that the thing that's going to happen afterwards is going to be fantastic and everyone's going to love it. So just keep that in mind, guys. The Fed, its great game is going to come to an end. It is on quite the tightrope here. Inflation is rising. Unemployment is rising. This is the nightmare. This is red alert scenario for them. It's time to enact Protocol Z, which that is actually scary. Okay. I talked about this on Work Hard. Protocol Z. It's a Sam Hyde joke. It's time to do anything. All right. And so the Fed and all the people who the Fed works for, and who work for the Fed, the powers that be, are about to get pretty desperate. It's about to be time to enact Protocol Z. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't think they're going to be able to start World War III. I think there's a good argument to argue that we are already in World War III, and this is just what it's going to look like. I don't think they're going to be able to start World War III, but I am worried that they're going to set off a nuke somewhere. I don't think they'll have a country shoot a nuke at another country, but I do think that they might have some Iranian terrorist splinter cell or whatever get a hold of a nuke and set one off in Florida and try to kill Trump or something with it. Who knows, man? But I think it is time to be cautious. It is time to be cautious, but it's not time to worry. It's never time to worry. The Lord is in control. The Lord is in charge. He knows what's best for the world in general. He knows what's best for you. You're going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. All right. Just, save up some money, get a little bit of food, maybe buy a cheap car, sell your expensive one. Try to give yourself a little bit of a cushion and just survive through the 8 month to 2 year period that we may have. That's going to be uncomfortable. Okay. I don't think it's going to be 2 years, but, like we could say that that's max. And I don't know exactly when it's coming. All right. I'm not intelligent enough to be able to point at that. I don't think anybody is, but, I think to argue that we are not on the verge of great change is retarded. So, and that change I think will be good. So guys, I love you. I am praying for you. This has been Ethan with Maximum Alert. We will see you guys next week, hopefully, for our next episode. We will see. I'll be out of town all week. I won't be able to work on anything hyper premium related while I'm gone. So, I love you guys. Peace out. Find a woman, and please go ahead and give, if you're listening to this and you don't listen to Work Hard, go to Hyper Premium Substack. The link should be in the description here. If you're listening to this on anything other than Substack, give some stuff a listen. Give Work Hard a listen. That's our flagship podcast. My co-host Jason and I think, have gotten pretty good at talking and keeping, embedding valuable information in an entertaining capsule. And also give the Hyper Premium Presents a listen as well. Those are two special episodes that I have. That's a special series of interviewing people I think are interesting. One of them is with my buddy who's a flat earther. I think that one's pretty entertaining, pretty good one. And then another one is with one of my buddies who's a professor of English out of a school in Mississippi. And he's extremely intelligent. I think we had a good conversation. So those could be interesting, enlightening, and at least fun to listen to in the car, I think. So guys, I appreciate it. Thank you guys. Those who are listening, I appreciate you very much. We love you dearly. Hyper Premium is on the up and up. We are growing. We are actually growing pretty rapidly. Our listeners are increasing quickly, and I haven't spent any money yet, and I'm about to start spending a lot of money on Hyper Premium. So, please, follow us on all platforms, on Spotify, on YouTube, on Substack. Get in the ground early. You can talk to us now. Whatever, I kind of say that tongue in cheek because I see that all the time on Instagram, like really bad musicians being like, whatever. I'm not going to go into it. We'll cut it short. We'll cut it short here. All right, guys. We love you. We're praying for you. This has been Ethan for Maximum Alert. See you later.